Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has dawned upon you. The light of light, the word of God, uttered in the darkness, let there be light, at the beginning of creation. And the darkness splintered, and light came upon the face of the deep. This word of God, this light of light, this God in human flesh is on the mountain of the Transfiguration with Peter and James and John. And he's gone to pray, and suddenly he is transfigured. His clothes begin to glow, and his face begins to shine, just like the face of Moses shone when he got the 10 Commandments from the Lord. Moses' face was so terrifying that the children of Israel couldn't bear to look at it. They asked him to put a veil over his face, for they knew that they were having an encounter with someone who had encountered the God of all creation. And this event, this transfiguration, is part of a journey that began at Caesarea Philippi, way up north in the Golan Heights. And there Jesus had asked his disciples a question. Who do people say that I am? Well, some say you're Moses, some say you're Elijah, some say you're John the Baptist. But Peter said, you are the Messiah, you are the chosen one of God. And Jesus was thrilled and said, this is the faith. On this faith I will build my church. And let me tell you how that's going to happen. We're headed to Jerusalem. And once I get to Jerusalem, I'm going to be beaten and whipped and crucified and killed. And on the third day I'll rise again. And Peter says, bad plan. No, we got to do something else besides that. Surely you have a better plan than that. That doesn't make any sense at all. And Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. And they work their way south, and they come to this mountain, and the disciples find themselves enveloped in a cloud of God's presence, and Peter is absolutely terrified along with everyone else. And a voice comes from the cloud, this is my Son, my beloved. Listen to him. And they come down from the mountain. They're immediately confronted by a man who has a son with an unclean spirit that is convulsing him to the ground. And he says, I've tried for help, even your disciples can't help. And Jesus says, how long do I have to put up with this perverse and faithless generation? I wonder how many times God in heaven says that about me and about you, about us. You see, for me, it's always a struggle between my plans and God's plan. But I think that we as human beings are created to be connected to the light from the very beginning. You ever notice how a little baby, all you have to do is take it to a bright light and suddenly that baby just is transfixed? The baby's eyes will follow that light wherever that light goes. And scientists have made in recent years an absolutely astounding discovery that at the moment of conception, the moment a human sperm enters a human egg, suddenly zinc atoms come flying out and they glow. And if you watch that fertilized embryo from that one zinc spark, suddenly the whole embryo begins to glow with light. From the very beginning of our creation, at the very moment of conception, the light of God is surrounding us and swirling around us and imbuing us with His presence. But I think that light fades when we choose to go our own way. We see that light every once in a while when somebody who's filled with joy and excitement, their face just lights up and we say their face glows. We know what it looks like when someone is filled with the light of joy and happiness. And that is God's plan for all of us. But this Jesus who was filled with God's light, this Jesus who was filled with God's presence, this Jesus whose clothes were glowing and whose face was shining, is the same Jesus who said, "Unless you turn aside from your father and your mother and your sisters and all your own dreams and desires and take up your cross and follow me, you cannot be my disciple." Jesus is saying to Peter and saying to us, I know you have dreams. I know you have plans. I know you've worked on them really, really hard. But those are not my dreams and plans for you. Take up the suffering of the cross. Allow me to crucify those dreams. Allow me to crucify your plans, your agenda, your hopes, your desires. And let me give you ones that are better, deeper, richer. So many times I'm like Peter. Bad plan. I'd rather do it this way. And Jesus says, will you take up your cross? Will you follow me? Will you go where I lead? Will you allow me to take you into light and glory? For the transfiguration is a foreshadowing of what happens to all of humanity who follow Jesus. It's like seeing the end of the ball game, the score, before you even watch the game being played. On that holy mountain, they saw the resurrected glory of Jesus before he even went to the cross. They knew the end game, and we know the end game as well. That if we follow where Jesus leads, if we do what he asks us to do, if we embrace the suffering of the cross and whatever life may bring us following what God asks us to do, then there is resurrection glory, there is light, there is transfiguration, and we are filled and become who God has called us to be. And one day, we will stand in the presence of God, light from light, and we will shine and glow, transfigured, made perfectly new, filled with light, shining with light and love. This is my Son, my beloved. Listen to him. Follow where he leads.